Yes. MySubstation.com, people. Chad Money. Still with shades on. Got Tayrin with me. Dear Tayrin. Incorporated. Inc. No pen. What's going on? How are you?
Well, and you?
Excellent. So, for anybody who doesn't know, right off top, let them know, just a little bit about Dear Tayrin. What's what all does it have to do with? What all it encompasses, I guess. And if anybody's interested in being involved or being a part or helping anything like that.
Well, Dear Tayrin Inc. is a non-for-profit organization bringing forth awareness on sexual abuse while empowering those who have been victimized. I started the organization 3 years ago when I decided to come out publicly with my own story through a newsletter to a different organization that I am in full support of and that now I am board advisor of. And when I came out publicly with my story, I came out with the idea to just start a blog called Dear Tayrin, just as, and to me it was more of like an open invitation as if you were writing somebody a letter to tell them your story. And when that happened, I got a lot of feedback between family and friends and people around the world because the newsletter went through an organization that's based out of LA.
Okay.
And when that happened, with that feedback between local people who were interested in what I was doing, I decided to first collaborate with a friend of mine to do a 6-week session for a group of girls that were ages from 13 to 15 at an after-school program. And we collaborated and came up with a 6-week session workshop type of material. And from there, in those 6 weeks, every session was emotional with these young girls. And I noticed that these young girls were facing issues between bullying, sex trafficking, sexual abuse, sexual harassment, between all those things that I felt that they should not have to go through this between those ages. And when that happened, I decided to do an awareness event to bring forth awareness on sexual abuse. I don't know, for me, I felt that it was a time for me in my life to finally just come out with what I had struggled with for years. I had only talked to my family only about it, but very little, just said what happened and never really kept talking about it, or significant others. So when I finally came up with it publicly, I had to start talking about it. I had to start talking about who it happened with. And for those who do not know, at the age of 5, I was sexually abused by my aunt's husband. And it was only one time, luckily for me. But I think back now that situation could have gone horribly wrong.
Right.
If I would have let him know that I was awake, I might not be here today. So I'm thankful that I am here today to be able to, tell my story and to help others get through their own stories and to bring forth healing and empowering them to be able to let them know that there's strength within numbers, which is the panel discussion that we're currently doing right now, and that they are able to find healing within themselves. And that they do have support with me, with people involved in my organization, and many others that are out there that are struggling with this silently. And they don't have to struggle with this silently. This is something that they are able to talk about. But anyway, to go back, so we did the first awareness event, and at the first awareness event, we had about 5 musicians, about 50 attendees, and it was free to the community. And from there on, little by little, just things started happening. I met Miss New York at that time, Mallory Hagan, who then became Miss America that January. Yeah, she did. She's amazing. Her mom is a survivor of sexual abuse, and that's why that was her platform, and she is still an advocate for that. And gorgeous woman. And from there, then she actually was my first Dear Tayrin Twitter chat that we did together back in December of 2012. And then from there then I decided to do a fundraiser to help my organization raise funds to then do the next awareness event, so there would be an bigger scale, and to be able to create more support groups, which has been something that I've been wanting to do.
Sure.
And when we did the first annual fundraiser, that ended up being a huge hit. We had the Kraker brothers from Ohio, and then we also had Kevin Hall, who's a jazz saxophonist here in the city of Buffalo, as well as Drea Denor, who is an ambassador and advocate for Dear Tayrin Inc. She is a survivor herself, and this is something that is dear to her heart, and she's definitely very dear to my heart.
Gotcha.
And then we had our second annual awareness event last year. That was amazing as well. Drea performed in that one. We had a lot of people come forward with some of their stories for the first time publicly. And now this year we did a women's panel discussion called Strength in Numbers, Recognizing Your Own Healing Potential. We had about 40 women that showed up who registered, and there was about 6 or 7 panelists on board. And now tomorrow we have our first men's panel discussion. Just
to let the gentlemen come out.
Yes, please. And we have 4 panelists. We have Bishop Emilio Alvarez, who is one of our panelists. Cord Stone, who is a director at our wellness area at Evergreen Health Services, or Center of Behavioral Health. And then we also have Ezekiel Goodwin, who is also a sex mental counselor, I believe. Forgive me if I said that wrong. And then we also have Thomas Lewis, who works for Benedict House, and he's also a counselor. And then we have Oswaldo Mestre, who just is speaking from different experiences and really being there for youth throughout the years. And he is the Director of Citizen Services at City Hall. So they will all be there tomorrow. And I'm very excited about that. I feel that, this topic is very tabooed topic. And nobody wants to talk about these issues. And for me this year, the Dear Tayrin thing was game changer. And bringing things that were going to change the game when it comes to these subjects. And what can we do? What can we do? How can we change it? How can we start talking about a subject that keeps that the government or the society keeps oppressing us to not talk about. It's also has been oppressed in the faith-based communities. It's something that is not talked about. They don't want to talk about it. There have been many scandals that have happened within the faith-based community. And granted, I believe in God. I belong to my organization, the Way Christian Community, and my spiritual father is amazing and has always been the type of person to let's go against the grain. Let's talk about these issues. So that's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing as well. Having good support system to help you do what you believe in, and
that's huge.
Yeah, and making your dreams become a reality is a huge thing. So, and then this year in June we have our second annual fundraiser. That's going to be at the Archer Restaurant on Friday, June 27th. And of course, we're going to have Chad Money there. And
we'll be there.
Yes, the tickets are $40, and it's to benefit Dear Tayrin Inc. And that is, I want people to really understand that it's for our awareness event. And the reason it's for our awareness event is because the awareness event is free to the community.
Yes.
And that's where I want to actually bring in this young woman who does a spoken word, and she has her own story where she struggled with sexual abuse, and I really want to bring her in. So that's part of the funds are going to be for that. If we can book her for that time period, the date that we have so far for the third annual awareness event will be October 18th, which is a Saturday. That will be at the Evergreen Commons.
Save the date. Save it.
October 18th.
Yes.
Saturday. That should be about 4 or 5 o'clock. The time is to be determined as of right now. But at that one, we're going to do a dual panel discussion. We are going to have the males and the females that were at both the panelists, and have both of them dialoguing about these issues, and the men giving their perspectives and the women give their perspectives. and then at the same time talking about how can we change this, whether it's starting locally and then going nationally. How can we change this together? Right? Game changer, right? So in the middle of that, we'll break out into networking, and if anybody wants to talk to the panelists, they feel they need to discuss anything with them or just meet them, period. And then we'll hopefully get that young woman to come down. And hopefully she's one person that watches this show. Her name is Mysterious Genetics.
Okay.
So if she does watch this, then she'll hear this directly at first stop. And then after that, we'll hopefully have either Drea or Denora back on board as one of our bands. If not, definitely have another band on board to give some kind of entertainment. And there will be food, appetizers and refreshments as well as pictures taken. But mainly is to bring forth awareness on the subject and to discuss it. And if we have anybody that's interested in telling their stories publicly, that can happen as well if they feel the need to. I've had many anonymous stories that have been sent to me via email. And there's many that are not anonymous that I just know their stories.
Gotcha.
I know one woman has told me recently after the women's panel discussion that with every event she's healing. And that she was so grateful for what I'm doing because with every event, yes, she cannot come publicly right now, but with every event, it's healing her inside. It's helping her understand. It's helping her come, to clarity with herself, with how she is now. Because this is something that really does affect you. For years it affected me.
Certainly.
I had PTSD for years, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, for those who do not know. And I had no idea. I thought it was me always thinking about the issue.
Right.
I thought I was thinking about that scenario, that same moment. Why does this keep coming, to my head? And it would come at the wrong timing.
Right.
When I'm trying to be intimate with my other person.
Certainly.
And my body would completely shut down.
Right.
And I didn't understand that. I thought it was me, and I would blame myself. Why am I thinking about that? And until one day I went to a conference, and they were talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, and I went mainly to just learn more so that I can help others, and ended up helping me to realize that I was suffering from that as well. But once I started confronting my issues and really talking about everything, that has been my healing.
Certainly.
And it's no longer an issue for me. I don't think about it anymore. If I start talking about it and I think about that day, yes, I will think about it. But it's no longer something that hinders me from anything, no longer oppresses me. I am free from it, and I'm sure I'm probably not completely healed from it, but it's an everyday thing, that you keep dealing with. But I think that's the point, to face the issue head on. With whatever it is, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it was rape, whether it's something else, an illness that you're dealing with in your life, an eating disorder, just facing the issue and finally acknowledging it and putting a face to it.
Not running from it.
Exactly, putting a face to it. There's a celebrity who I come to know, and which is her story was what gave me my strength to come forward with my story. Her name is Chantel Vincent, and what she does is she'll take an issue, whether it's jealousy, anger, self-esteem, eating disorder, sexual abuse, and she'll put a face to it by writing a letter to it. And she says, "Dear sexual abuse, this is all the issues that I'm having with you right now. And why are you doing this to me? And how am I going to change this? And why you no longer are going to deal, be an effect in my life anymore." And when she does it that way, and she reads it, then she's confronting it, and she's like, "Okay, I see you. I see you. I acknowledge you, and now I'm done with you. Or I will be done with you with steps." But it was an amazing way to look at it, and I think that's one of my main things, is definitely bringing healing and empowering others, not just women, men as well. There are many men that have dealt with this.
I wanted to ask you about that too. Do you get a lot of guys that come to you? I've been a victim as well, and I just don't know how to share my story or who to come to, or they might not so much be afraid of telling, but afraid of the public ridicule. You're a big strong man, or even if you're not a big strong man, just you're a man. Period. You shouldn't be complaining about that type of stuff. You get that?
Yeah, I have a lot of men in my life who have come to me with their own personal stories, and only I know it, or maybe I and their significant other. But they have been able to open up to me and feel comfortable enough to talk to me, and it's definitely when you have somebody who has been there, it's easier to open up to them. Where if you have a counselor who you're talking to that has never dealt with anything like that, you don't want to open up to them. And anything they say to you, like, how do you know?
Exactly.
You haven't been there.
Exactly.
I'm in no way, I'm not a counselor, and I always tell everybody that, when I give my advice, it's talking from my own personal experience. It's not talking or giving any advice as a counselor. I'm not a doctor. But I think that's what works well for Dear Tayrin is the fact that I'm a survivor myself. I went from being a victim for 22 years to being a survivor now. And that's, it's exciting for me. And every single time a woman or a man comes to me and says, you know what? Yeah, I'm done with it too. I'm done being a victim. I'm a survivor. I had another woman who, after the women's panel discussion, emailed me and said it. She said, I'm finally going to say it out loud. From another human to another human, I am a survivor. I no longer want this to hinder me. I no longer want this to oppress me, because I'm in a current relationship that I want to move. I want it to move forward. I want to marry this man. And until I confront this issue, I'm not going to be able to be happy and really be me until this is, confronted.
Do you see that's a lot of ladies' struggles? The fact that they would like to move on, or they would want to move on, but again, I guess for maybe fear of judgment, or for whatever you're fearful of, it just takes you, or it takes them so long. And you have a partner, or you have friends, and they might be thinking it's them, or wondering, what's wrong with me per se. And once they have that release, it allows them to move forward. But then a lot of times, and there might be relationships that in turn end up destroyed because you're just not ready at that time to come out.
Yeah, it's happened. I mean, I've had women that I talked to, on a more personal level, on a one-on-one level, that we've discussed things that I've gone through. And I try to be as open as possible with my own struggles, with my own personal story, because I know that there are many out there that have dealt with the same things I've dealt with. And when I come forward with that, they're like, I deal with the same thing. Now, granted, they're not going to say it out loud. They're not going to say it publicly, and that's fine. You don't have to say all of your things publicly. For me, I do, to a certain extent, because I want it to help others. Because this is not about me. This is about helping others. And it just brings a freedom to within your own soul as well as in theirs. So again, with me, I've been as open as possible. There are some things I won't talk about that I'll keep to myself. Maybe one day I will. But there are some things that I will not talk about that is just for your own knowing. Nobody else needs to know. But yeah, it's definitely hard. A lot of women, a lot of people, they deal with it differently. If some people have suppressed it and they don't even realize it until something triggers it years later. And then they have to deal with it at that moment because they didn't deal with it before. Some people, women and men, have gone into alcoholism or drug or any type of drug, and that's their freedom. That's how they get away from everything, or that's how they deal with it. And or they become very promiscuous because that's they need to feel. They feel that touch is what love is supposed to be. Having to touch somebody. And that's not love. That's not the proper love and true love. And it's unfortunate, but that's exactly how it happens.
Certainly. Now, when you see ladies, females, girls, however young it may be, and you can tell that they have something that they want to share, and they are holding it in. and maybe they just speak to you, in speaking to you, and not really knowing that you are a survivor. Do you see that once you share their story, or once they become more comfortable around you, I guess it becomes easier for them to go ahead and let that go? And then once that happens, do you see like I don't want to say I don't want to say positive change, for the better, but do you see I guess like a brighter personality, like, oh, it's lifted off me and I can move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time I did the 6-week session with those 15 young girls, and they were the ages 13 to 15, and out of the 15 young girls, 13 of them had a story. And again, they all involved either sexual abuse or sexual harassment or bullying or sex trafficking. And I remember one story of one of the girls, and I forgot her name, but I remember her being quiet for the first 2 or 3 sessions, and she would participate a little bit, but I had no idea that her mom had been a victim of sexual abuse, and she herself for a long time had no idea that her mom was a victim of sexual abuse. She always wondered why her mom acted a certain way around a specific person, the person who had sexually abused her. Why she was always taking them away from her, from them, or that person, and she just had a lot of characteristics, and her mom had never told her story. So when we were discussing these things and she brought it home, started talking about these things, her mom came and told her what had been what had happened in the past, told her the whole story about everything, and she cried for her mom. She's like, you should never have to have been dealing with that, and she felt so, horrible that her mom had to deal with that, when she was younger. And so she came back to the session, and towards the end of the session, everybody was saying something, and all of a sudden she said, I want to say something. And we're like, okay, what do you have to say? And she starts telling us what happened with the mom, and all of a sudden she turns around to me, and she starts crying. And she's saying, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. And that's the first time I cried, at a session like this, because listening to her saying thank you with such gratitude that somebody was acknowledging this. Towards the end of those sessions, there was another girl that, to her parents, because a lot of these girls were refugees, and in that culture, in that country, this is something that's normal for them. This is something that they can't speak up about. If they speak up, they're killed. It's normal for them, so the parents are like, just deal with it. If it happens, you just have to deal with it. And that's it. There's nothing we can do about it. You don't have a voice, is what they're told. And it was so sad to hear that. And we told her, you have a voice. I don't care what your parents say. If you feel that you can't talk to your parents, you have us to talk to. You have a voice. What is wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter. But it was really sad that she felt that there was no hope, because it was something that's normal for them, that she didn't have no hope in that aspect. So that's another thing that we try to push for, to let people know that they have a voice and to be empowered to do so, even at a young age.
How oftentimes do you see people, not so much scared, but maybe more so apprehensive to give their story because they've already been shunned or put down for so long, and because at the same side they don't want to implicate someone who they may have love for, or someone who they had a certain level of respect for? How often do you see that, and how often do you see people not really wanting to pull away from those situations, and then in turn letting them know that this is what you have to do if you want to move forward in your life?
Well, almost 100% of the time, it's somebody you're either close to or a family member, which is another thing that's sad, and that's why it is so conflicting, the feelings. Because, example, if it was your father, for young girls who had to deal with that with their father, dealing with that, this is my father, the man that I love and that I trust and I'm supposed to feel secure, and now he has violated boundary between us, but yet he's still my father. That's a big deal, you know, and it's very hard to deal with. There were some women at the panel discussion too that, you know, that was one of their things, that forgiveness is a huge issue. But people should understand that the forgiveness is not for the other person. The forgiveness is for yourself, so that you can heal, so that you can move forward. And you don't have to forgive. You don't have to tell that person you forgive them in person. You can forgive them just within yourself. You don't have, forgiveness doesn't mean that now you're going to hang out with that person and be with that person all over again. You can still keep your distance and forgive them. It's something that is just for you to be able to move forward with your life and get past it. If you feel that you do need to tell the person straight to their face, then yeah, you do it that as well. And you still don't have to have a relationship with that person. You can still be apart from them. But it's really hard. It's because of the fact that it's normally somebody that you know and you had this relationship with them, and now it's, you know, taking advantage of and brought into a whole nother level that you never imagined. And I can imagine even for at very young age, dealing with with that and having to come forward with that. You know, with my situation, it was my aunt's husband who I was very close to them. And my parents didn't come to find out that I had been sexually abused until I was in 7th grade. And I thought the whole time they knew, because I remember saying something to my grandmother when I was small. And now granted, I don't remember what I said, but I remember saying something about that night. And I don't fault her for that. My grandmother was a very strong woman, loving woman, raised me, loved her family. But she was also a woman who, when it came to those type of issues, she didn't want the drama. She didn't want the confrontation. Like a lot of our older generation is like that. They didn't want to deal with, they didn't want to confront the issue. So in order to avoid now my father and mother going after her other daughter and her husband, she just stayed quiet and didn't say anything. And so therefore, it is what it is. I don't hold any grudges against my grandmother. My parents didn't know till I was in 7th grade, and then it made sense to me, like, okay, this is why nobody ever talked to me about it, because nobody knew. And it, you know, my father took it really hard. It affected him a lot. I think I only know that because I was there to see my father's reaction. I wasn't there to see my mom's reaction. My mom's had to deal with it more now in my later years in life, when I finally decided to confront it myself head on. And she's, you know, been a great support and to helping out with taking care of my kids while I'm doing the things I have to do. And I think with every event, she's healing as well, healing from what happened, because I could imagine as a parent hearing that your child was sexually abused and you're the one who left them, you know, in that facility, or that residence. For me, I don't know how I would deal with that. I'm like, why did I leave them there? You know, and it's hard. It's really hard to deal with that aspect of it as a parent. So I couldn't imagine, you know, what parents have to go through, and which is why I'm very attentive now to, you know, my kids are not allowed to sleep just anywhere. You know, and when they do, even if it's at a family's house, who was there? What you guys do? Did anybody touch you? You know that this is not right. You know nobody's allowed to touch you in these parts, and they know. And then my oldest knows my story. You know, he knows part of it, and I'm very try to be as open with him as possible. So
now let me ask, what would you suggest for anyone who has been a victim of sexual abuse and just isn't ready to come out to someone with their story, or doesn't feel comfortable enough either with whoever's around them or still with their story and themselves to be able to come out? You know, what are some other effective methods that they can have to deal with it, rather than, you know, lashing out, which would, you know, be counterproductive for them, you know, or turning to sex or turning to alcohol? You know, what can someone do within themselves, you know, on their off time, or, you know, maybe something that could possibly work, you know, if they're just not ready to go ahead and give their story up to someone, or haven't found someone who will listen?
I think definitely if somebody's willing to reach out to a counselor, somebody that, and of course, because a counselor is always somebody that they don't know, the counselor has to keep this confidential, so they're safe to give their story. We're just talking about it with a counselor. I always say, if anybody wants to send me their story anonymously, they can send it to me anonymously. They can create up a fake email address easily and just send me their story if they just want to talk. Or even through Twitter. I have a Twitter and Facebook, and they can always send me information through there, just to talk to somebody who's been through it. So definitely I would say counselor first. If somebody goes to a faith-based organization, talking to their pastors or their counselors that they have on board there, whoever they feel comfortable with. If it's just a friend that they just finally want to talk to that person, somebody they can really trust to not tell their information to anybody else. For me, I found a lot of my growth in time of reflection. Just being, in time of solitude and really reflecting on things, and like I said, confronting the issue head on, putting a face to it, whether it is in poetry. I'm a person who loves to write poetry, and it just comes to me, and I'll just write, and I'll just start writing, and whatever comes to my head. For singers or for artists, period, or anybody who's in the entertainment industry, any form of art is always a great way of healing. And that's a way. And if you don't know how to write, maybe take up a poetry class, maybe take up some kind of art class, and find different ways to express yourself that are not harmful to yourself. If somebody's already into alcohol or drugs and they want to get out of it, then definitely talking to a counselor, talking to somebody, having a support group, going to support groups, which is the whole reason for my fundraisers, to create, support groups. One of my visions is this summer is to create a workshop that I would be able to do that, to be able for the women to be able to be a part of certain sessions and to bring forth healing and empowerment, with that aspect of it. There's a lot of things that are not talked about, and mental health illness or mental illness is another aspect of it that plays a lot with sexual abuse. So that's another thing. But definitely going to a counselor or somebody that you trust that you can tell your story to, or anonymously writing to somebody are great ways. There are online, there's websites that you can talk to. There are chat lines that you can go that you can Google. In your state, not. But yeah, there's different, 1-800 numbers you could call in New York State to just talk to somebody about it, and they don't know who you are, and that's a great way to start. So I would recommend that.
Lastly, do you feel that the schools are doing enough, or are they not doing enough to not so much confront the situation, but at least letting girls who might be or have been in that situation feel open enough that there's someone to come to in the school? Because I know a lot of times, outside of sexual abuse, just anything going on in school, I know a lot of times kids and girls mainly find it hard to go to faculty, staff, teachers, or anything like that. Do you think that there's something more that the schools could be doing, or
I think that is definitely an issue in the schools, that they don't talk about sexual health or talk about sexual abuse and what's right and what's wrong. I remember growing up, and I don't remember at any point in my life where any counselors or any kind of support group or anybody that came to a class to talk about sexual abuse. Yes, during our time, our high school days, they talk about sexual health to a certain degree, but then that was taken out. And sexual abuse was never talked about. It happens just as much to males. I think the issue with that we say that mainly females is because males, they're not allowed to say, oh, I was sexually abused. Or if they say a girl touched me, even if it's the wrong way, society looks at it as so. Instead of saying, why is that little girl touching you? what's going on in that little girl's life that she is touching you when she shouldn't be, right? So society is acceptant of it happening to a male and saying no, it's normal. You're a whiner, you're whatever. What?
Happy.
Yeah, you should be happy that girl did that, but no, it's wrong. I remember hearing a story from a parent in that situation that a little girl did something to the little boy, and they really didn't do nothing to the little girl. You know, the school didn't do nothing to the little girl because of that. And the mother advocated. The mother advocated for the little boy and said, no. Just because she's a little girl, why is she doing this to my son? Why did she show this to my son? Exactly. If it would have been my son, he would have been suspended. Exactly what she said. And she brought forth awareness to that and said, no, this is something we need to discuss. And whether you're going to do something or I'm going to say something, but we need to discuss this with his parents, because obviously there's something going on in that little girl's life that caused her to do this. And yeah, if you don't advocate, parents need to definitely advocate for their children, whether it's on sexual health, whether it's on sexual abuse, on bullying, anything like that is going on. You know, my kids have dealt with that, the whole bullying thing and other things, and you have to confront it. Sure. If you don't confront it and keep saying, oh, just deal with it or learn how to fight, or no, let's confront the issue, because then it gets to a point where then you can't do nothing about it anymore.
Right.
It gets out of control.
Now I don't want to say the end game, but what is what would be the greatest result of Dear Tayrin? You know, what would be the legacy that you would like to see made forth from your vision?
You know, I've thought about this, and I think somebody once told me that if you leave something in society and they continue on with what you left, then you made a difference.
Definitely, I like that.
And that's what I want from Dear Tayrin Inc. That what I've started, that it might just stay a small organization that is speaking loudly. And that when my passing comes, then my kids or whoever was a part of that organization continues to speak loudly on it and say, there was once a woman who started this, and we're going to continue to pave the way. Right? So that's my dream. That even if it stays a small organization, but that it continues to make a difference.
Gotcha. Mike wants you to know that you're pretty awesome too. So that's how that goes. Now, lastly, just one more time, give them website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, however they can directly get in contact with you and the organization. Anybody that wants to help, anybody that wants to sponsor, promote, possibly put together an event, help coordinate, let them know where they can reach you and what they need to do.
They can reach me on the Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/Dear Tayrin. There's also the Twitter page at twitter.com/Dear_Tayrin. And the email address for Dear Tayrin is DEARTAYRIN@gmail.com. And they can always look it up on the website as well, which is deartayrin.wordpress.com. And they can find all the information on there. Get a hold of me through there for anything when it comes to sponsorship. If they want to donate anything, we do have a Chinese auction and silent auction happening at the fundraiser. So if anybody wants to donate any big items that we could use as a silent auction, that would be of value, that would be great. Or even just gift baskets for the Chinese auction, that would be awesome as well. Monetary funds, that's always a help. And we can definitely put forth and put together this workshop that we're doing, as well as any other workshops that come in mind that we can keep going forward with.
That's dope. Tony, my bad, Tony. I guess that's all. Well, I'm not sure. I probably could think of more things to bother me down with. But that's Tayrin, Chad Money, Dear Tayrin Incorporated, Dear Tayrin Inc. with a C, not a K.
Yeah.
And just make sure you guys support. Make sure you guys support. Very worthy cause.
Yes.
You have more than enough information here at your disposal. So let's go ahead and make this thing happen. MySubstation.com, people. Thank you for watching.